So we all know the four gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. We've been talking about the Gospel of John for the past couple videos. So, and the signs, the miracles performed by Jesus. So this, if I'm not mistaken, is the only miracle that is included in all four gospels: Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and of course John. It held strong appeal, especially for those who had learned of Israel's experience in the wilderness when God rained down manna upon them to eat and gave them food from heaven. This sign shows Jesus as the supplier of physical needs. He is the living bread, the true bread of God, the true bread out of heaven. He's the one who daily feeds the whole world by creating harvest fields from just a few grains. Christ always provides. The question is, will we trust Him to provide our needs? And right now, with this coronavirus going on right now, it's actually kind of humorous. My aunt mentioned this to me the other day. God will provide for us. There's no need for people to be going out to the stores buying a whole bunch of toilet paper, a whole bunch of cleaning products, a whole bunch of sanitizer. God will provide for all of us. Jesus is the hope of the second Exodus, which leads to freedom from the slavery to the sin. And we're going to talk about this miracle, which is the feeding of 5,000. Jesus and his disciples were in the region of the 12, which was along the shore of the Sea of Galilee. The place offered a type of natural amphitheater. It was a beautiful place for Jesus to teach. This miracle took place just before Passover. It gives us a good idea that Jesus was probably into his public ministry at least a year. With Passover edging closer, the people may have been thinking about the great feast. Little did they know the Passover lamb was in their midst. In this, so no one really knows how many people there were. There were 5,000 men. Some believe with the women and the children, it could have easily been anywhere between 10,000 or 20,000 more people. But all of them were there for one reason, and that's because of the miracles. The multitude of people were listening to Jesus, and the disciples observed that there was no food for them to eat. Getting late in the day, they wanted to dismiss the crowd. The only food that was available at that time was a bag lunch that a lad had brought. At least he thought about making preparations for the daily bread he would need. Can you imagine being the only one with the food in the midst of 5,000 hungry men? I think I would have my food. Like, you wouldn't get my food. It may have just been this guy's bag lunch. But remember, little is much when God is in it. Jesus took the 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish and blessed them. 5 is the number of grace, and 2 is the number of witness. 5 and 2 make 7, which is the perfect number or number of completion. However, Jesus was not adding, but multiplying, which I know is not my favorite math problem. The miracle of provision took place as the disciples were serving the multitude. There were 12 baskets full remaining. Jesus instructed the disciples to gather the remaining food. It was not a doggy bag for the disciples. These baskets were most likely bushel baskets. It would be more than enough for the disciples. On a side note, uh, where did these baskets come from? Perhaps Jesus had a part in that as well. Could be one of the many unmentioned signs. That's a good question. I've actually never really thought about that. We'll look into that later. After the miracle took place, the multitude wanted to seize Jesus and make him their king. They desired an earthly king that could and would stop the Roman oppression. Jesus came as prophet, priest, and king. He withdrew because the purpose of his birth was not to save the Israelites from Rome, but to save the world from sin. Moses spoke of another prophet coming after him, and that they should listen to him. Jesus is the fulfillment of that prophecy. In conclusion, guys, the Lord loves to supply our need. There are several things that we can learn from this fourth miracle. God tests our faith with challenges to do the impossible. According to Philip and the rest of the disciples, feeding the multitude was impossible. God often ministers through weakness. He does not select strong people so that he can use their strengths. He does not select perfect people who always do things right in the eyes of men. He chooses weak and broken people so that he can demonstrate his power through their weakness. God is not limited by our experiences or our resources. The disciples thought there was nothing that could be done. We frequently limit ourselves in the church. We say this, and I've heard it said this way before. We've never done it this way before. But guess what? God delights in doing the unexpected.